Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. Before we begin today, I have just a few housekeeping items to go over. We have quite a few attendees on today's webinar, so we have everyone muted as they enter the session. If you have a question during the session, you may type and submit your question into the question box in your webinar toolbar. Any questions we do not have time to address during the live presentation will receive a follow-up email following the live presentation. We welcome you to submit your questions at any time during the presentation. We will also be recording this session and will make the recording available to all registrants via email on Friday. Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us for today's session, How to Improve Operational Efficiency with Modern ERP. My name is Emily Bull. I am the Marketing Manager at Decision Resources, Inc., and I will be acting as your host today. The first half of today's session will be a one-on-one interview with Doug Columbus, who you can see there on your screen from Ellwood Group. Doug will discuss some of the improvements the manufacturer has seen since implementing modern ERP. The second half of the session will include a live walkthrough of that ERP system, Infor CloudSuite Industrial, to demonstrate the features that we discuss in our conversation with Doug. For those of you who may not be familiar with Decision Resources, Inc., or DRI, we are a leading manufacturing software solutions expert and the largest Infor CloudSuite Industrial ERP partner in the US. DRI was founded in 1978 and has completed over 300 ERP implementations. DRI consistently ranks as a top Infor partner, including being named the 2020 No Customer Left Behind Partner of the Year for our dedication to helping our customers modernize through implementing the cloud ERP. Without further ado, I'd like to get started and introduce today's special guest, Doug Columbus. Doug is the Director of Corporate Business Systems at Ellwood Group, a 110-year-old engineered metals company. Doug, thanks for joining us today and sharing your insight. How are you?
Good, thanks. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, enjoying the sunshine in Pittsburgh. So I gave a really brief and quick description of Ellwood in my intro, but why don't you go ahead and in your own words, jump right in and tell us who is Ellwood Group?
Sure, great. So this year we turned 110. We're a 110-year-old group of companies that produces steel and aluminum products, and we serve the oil and gas, aerospace, automotive, and military markets. Currently we're at 24 companies in 40 locations all throughout North America, and we're approximately 2,100 employees. Some of our capabilities include being able to melt different various grades of steel and aluminum. We also can then forge those steel products into goods anywhere from 1 ton to 180 tons, so very large forgings. We also do machining and cladding. So we've been around for a long time and do a lot of things for our customers.
That's a lot better description than I gave. Thank you for sharing. And you said Ellwood has 24 companies. Was it 40 sites?
40 plus sites, yeah. 40
wow.
plus.
So really big. And just so our whole audience is aware, that the whole company is running CloudSuite Industrial ERP, correct?
Yes, we are. Yes.
Awesome. A lot. So today's session, working with so many companies, Doug, you're very familiar obviously with CloudSuite Industrial. Today's session, as you all know, is about improving operational efficiency and how Ellwood has achieved that with modern ERP. Doug, when I first asked you to share with me your top 3 benefits of CloudSuite Industrial, you told me hands down, without any hesitation, the #1 benefit of CSI is reporting. Why don't you expand on that a little bit for us?
Sure. As I said, 30 years ago we implemented, we implemented what it was called CIMIX. Oh, wait, we missed a question. Sorry. Reporting. Absolutely. One of the things about CSI. Sorry, I talk with my hands. One of the things about CSI that really makes it stand out is the fact that any ERP system it's easy to put data in, but with CSI we're able to get data out much easier. So you have the ability on every screen to filter or search or find data, then export that to Excel, arrange columns. You're able to do things like create your own reports using something called a data view. It just makes it so much easier to get data out. It not, with any other ERP system, you have to have somebody write a report. You have to have the IT department involved. Here, a user can do their own thing, and then just create. Once you get that report, or once you get that data out, being able to drill into it and further go to the next screen and the next screen, all the way down to the very first point of the data where it came from. So just the ability to do that is better than any other system that I've ever seen.
Of course, yeah, I agree with you. So reporting is really important, and CloudSuite Industrial has definitely mastered its reporting capabilities.
Right.
Having that at your fingertips is essential when you're analyzing data across 24 companies, I imagine.
Right. And then even down to the user level, where they're trying to print out reports such as financial statements, or customer order acknowledgments or invoices. The system has the ability. Each user can choose which format that they want to print these things out in. So typically, maybe they come out in a PDF for user 123, but then they want to swap it so that it could come out in a Word document, or come out in Excel, or a CSV file, or each user has the ability to personalize a system, or personalize a particular report to come out how they want. So that's
Exactly.
something that the other systems just don't have.
Yeah, and with 20, like I said, with 21,000 employees and 24 companies,
2100,
go ahead.
2100. Yeah,
20, oh,
21.
I'm sorry. Did I say
Yeah.
21,000? 2,100 employees and 24 companies. Like I said, having that at your fingertips is essential. And actually, that's a great segue into our next benefit that you wanted to talk about, which is adaptability. So
Hmm.
with those 24 companies running the same system, I imagine that not every company has the same processes. They're not all manufacturing the same thing. So how does the system manage adaptability when you're running so many different processes within 24 companies?
Yeah, I mean, each company does something totally different. So we have a company now, that manufactures large, complex forgings. And some of those routers, or some of those processes, are somewhere between 30 and 100 steps. And the lead times
Wow.
can go anywhere from 60 to 20 months. So we're in the process now of implementing Infor's advanced product configurator to help us quote and build those products. So that's a large, complex product, and the system was able to adapt to help us design, build, quote, and produce those products. As compared to, we have another customer, or another company that is more steel distribution, steel aluminum distribution, retail like, to where our lead times are more, anywhere under a day. So that the process of retail and warehousing is much different than building a complex forging that has a 6 to 20 month lead time.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
both
So
companies run CSI for short.
those are great examples, Doug. So CSI can handle, like you said, those 30 steps over several months, or it can just handle, those simpler processes that only take a short period of time and require just a couple of steps. And you make a good point, because we hear this all the time from our customers. The system, we'll hear from a company that manufactures complex, heavily regulated chemicals, and the system can handle that. And then you go from those complex things to those, maybe a small screw or a bolt that the specs never change, and it's mass produced, and they make it all the time. So the system, you make good points, and you provide good examples that the system is able to adapt to all of these different processes. And for someone like Ellwood with 24 companies, that's really important to operational efficiency.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
so we've covered reporting and adaptability, but it doesn't stop there. The third thing we wanted to talk about today was ease of use. Ellwood has an on-premises deployment right now, and people often assume that on-premises means that you need a huge IT department to manage the system, but that's not exactly the case with CloudSuite Industrial, is it?
No, and definitely not with Ellwood. I mean, currently there are 26 people in our IT department, and half of those are really dedicated to the ERP system and the things that it touches. So, and those people all report through me. And most of their roles are functional, not technical. So, most of the time, a business analyst is not really writing code. They're more or less helping our ever-changing business, adapting the software to our ever-changing business, So just because you put a business process in place doesn't mean that a year from now that it doesn't change. And as our customers' needs change, we have to change with it, and so does the software. So yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, absolutely. So, I could imagine a smaller company, we're on premise and we've got a bunch of different companies. I could imagine a smaller company that would run it in the cloud. The cost would not be so great.
Yeah, and that's a good point as well. So major points with usability with IT, very easy to facilitate processes for the user, but also I'm wondering, aside from the IT department, uh, I know that Ellwood has been a DRI customer for quite some time. I know that you've implemented a few times at newly acquired businesses. Do you ever have a struggle with user adoption at those companies?
No, because when we acquire a company, it's known that we're going to be putting CSI in, and the software really is adaptable to any process. So, I mean, that's really not the issue. I mean, it's we really want to be on one system so that we can have the ability to report upwards and consolidate data. And as for end user adoptions, once they start to see what the system is like, we get in there and begin to show them what it can do.
Hmm.
It's a very easy process. They love it.
Excellent. Yeah, and we've seen that with other customers as well who acquire new business or even new customers that we take on that are transitioning from a different ERP system. Once they get that training, the end user gets that training and they see how easy it is to use, we actually often hear about a huge increase in productivity. So I'm
Yeah.
glad to see that that's happened at Ellwood as well.
And
Um,
what I mentioned before, one of the things that I said before, it's so easy to get the data out, but I didn't mention either is that, being able to copy and paste multiple rows of data in, rather than type it in, you can take it right from a spreadsheet and import it right into Sightline or CSI with no problem whatsoever. Once users see how that works, it becomes beautiful for them to work, and end user adoption, it really isn't a problem for us.
And I can agree with you on that because I actually use some of the CRM features for CSI for my own personal position at DRI, and I agree 100%. If we get a ton of new leads, I'm able to put them in the system really quick with an import, and it's so easy to use. And I'm not a technical person, so if I can do it,
Right, right.
I'm glad to hear that the end user at Ellwood feels the same way that I do. Um, all right, so that covers those top three benefits that you wanted to cover, Doug: reporting, adaptability, and ease of use. That's, I would say, probably the past and certainly the present of Ellwood. So my next question is, what's next? Will Ellwood stick with CloudSuite Industrial long term?
Yeah, I believe so. Absolutely. So we're definitely sticking with it. And one of the reasons that we plan to stick with it is the fact that the Coke industry has invested heavily into it. So, them putting money into Infor itself means that there's going to be tons of R&D going forward. And with that said, it means that the product won't go belly up like others, and we won't be stuck with something that's end of life. So that was a huge selling point for us. I mean, I know that every so often we do reevaluate which ERP system that we have, and that whether or not we should change. But we keep coming back to CSI, and that is the plan
Exactly.
going forward.
And I know
So
that in the near future, you may be implementing Infor OS as well.
that's the plan starting next year. We really want to, because we're an on-premise configuration, we just bought CSI, and we'd like to start to integrate Infor OS because we'd like to have, we'd like to be able to implement things like Infor document management, Mingle, and some of the other, features like Burst, and some of the other reporting features that come with it, home pages. Um, I think that's really the direction that we're going to head in, and starting next year, we're going to begin the implementation.
Sounds like a plan. And just for our
Absolutely.
audience, to expand on what Doug is talking about here, because you may not be aware, Koch Industries acquired Infor in February of 2020. And actually, previous to that, they had invested $4 billion in product design and development for the industry specific cloud suites, which includes Infor CloudSuite Industrial, which is what Ellwood runs. And actually, a part of that investment, talking about Infor OS, a part of that investment included some of the development aspects of Infor OS. Infor OS is a cloud operating platform that brings together those things that Doug is talking about: Mingle, which is a collaboration tool, analytics tools, integration tools, document management, which Doug mentioned, AI, all into a single platform. So that's what Doug's talking about when he says they're looking to implement Infor OS in the future. It's Infor OS is a very powerful platform, and we're actually going to be demonstrating that live shortly for everyone on the call, which is a great transition, Doug, into the second half of our webinar today, to demonstrate that. There's a lot of exciting things happening at Ellwood, and I'm really appreciative of you coming in today and sharing your successes that you've experienced with Infor CloudSuite Industrial with this audience. Um, if you have nothing else to say, nothing else to add, thank you for your time. We can just go ahead and jump right into the demonstration now.
Okay, great. Nice to speak to everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Doug.
You're welcome.
And like I said, that will bring us to the second portion of today's session. I will pass it off right away then to Mike Stitt. Mike Stitt is a senior business solutions consultant with DRI. Mike, Doug, like I said, talked a lot about those things that you're going to cover, including Infor OS, some of the reporting features, BI, collaboration. So if you're ready, I'll go ahead and pass it off to you right now. You can jump in and give our attendees a sense of what those features look like.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Can you hear me and can you see me? See
You
my
sound
screen?
great. Looks good.
Okay. All right, thanks, Emily, and thanks, Doug. Thanks in particular to Doug. Really good presentation of a real life person that uses our system and gets a lot of value and utility out of it. So let's take a look at the system a little bit, and let's say the heck with PowerPoints. Let's actually show you the system. All right, so what we're looking at right now is I am inside the Infor CloudSuite ERP system. It might look like this is a PowerPoint, but I'm actually in what's called a home page. And because I do a lot of demonstrations of the software, I use a lot of these what are called home pages. I have a whole bunch of them over here. But what's unique in our system is home pages are sort of a landing spot for individuals, users, regular users of the system to sort of build their their landing spot, their home page. So for example, here's an inventory home page, and it's the kind of thing that, again, we'll show you in a brief demonstration of how a user can build these home pages. But that's what I'm sitting in here, in one of my many different home pages. Again, typical users of our system are only going to need one or two home pages. But before we get into those details, let's just look at this little overall diagram here. We call this the Infor CloudSuite Circle of Life. It's a nice little depiction of the sort of the footprint of our functionality. And you know, without being arrogant about this, we think we have a pretty good system because it's very sort of comprehensive, and it's both deep and wide. And I won't go through all the details here, but when you look at this, with what you're getting with the Infor CloudSuite Industrial ERP system is sort of not just regular your mother's old ERP. It's a sort of a full business suite. So it includes things like CRM over here at 2 o'clock. It includes things like quality management and service lifecycle management. And up here at document management, there's a, I'm up here at about 10 o'clock. There's a full functioning, fully integrated document management capability that comes with the system. That allows you to associate documents with records in your ERP system. So for example, documents that you might associate with an item master, a part master record, or a customer. And all those documents that are sort of associated there, they're all connected to a capability, a system that's a document management system that does things like revision tracking, revision control, check-in, check-out logic, etc. So when you look back at sort of this entire depiction here, this diagram, this is a good idea that gives you sort of a sense of the depth and the breadth of this particular system. Okay, so now let's take a look a little bit more at these home pages. Now, one of the things, by the way, I should mention is that I am demonstrating inside a web browser. I happen to be using Chrome, but I could be using Firefox. If we have some Apple people out there, I could be using Safari. So any of the common browsers are fully supported. We like to say we're sort of browser agnostic. Okay. I also like to put my browsers in full screen mode. That's what I just did there. It gives me a little more real estate. But now I'm looking at home pages. Let's just give you a sort of a quick view of some of these home pages. I could come down and have maybe an executive home page. And when I have an executive home page, you can see things like I have a portion of a website up here. This is the website for the organization I work for, Decision Resources. Okay, then, but just right below that, I have some key, maybe critical business drivers, key performance indicators like pipeline value and how we're doing on-time shipments. Okay, as I scroll down on this, I can have lots of these sort of easy to see and use metrics. And we'll talk in a few minutes about how a user can nicely and easily sort of drop these onto a home page. Okay, so as I move down, then I might actually down here start to see a live action, fully active dashboard sort of surface on the screen. And we'll get into quite a bit of details there. But this is just a small example of how a home page might look. Let's look at a couple other examples. If I come over here to this one called inventory, this is one where as I look at it, at the top, I'll use some of these menu links to get me into sort of detailed areas of the system. But I have other sort of quick snapshots like, hey, I want to see, do I have any expiring lot numbers this week? Okay, I have one, or do I have more this month? But notice how it's kind of interactive. And the way this interacts is I say, oh, I have 2 expiring lots or expiring serial numbers. When I click on that, then the system takes me into sort of the details of that record. But that's in our system, that's a very, very typical sort of process flow, is that a user can start on their home page and easily get to related information. So in this home page, we see some of the things we saw at the top. We see then sort of a view, because this is inventory related, I see a view of some inventory snapshots like item details. Here's this another way of looking at expiring lots. Here's a list of everything that needs to be cycle counted. And notice this information is sort of available at the user's fingertips. Now, there's lots of other things on this home page as well, including another dashboard. This is a more of a inventory analysis related dashboard. If we have a little bit of time, I'll walk into the details of that. But again, the idea here is sort of putting the power at the user's hands where they can build their sort of landing spot, their dashboard, their home page any way they'd like. Now, related to that, let's look at the mechanics. Let's just touch on this, on the mechanics of this a little bit. I'll come down to this one I call Mike's home page. Okay, and this one's a little bit, it's not quite as busy. Okay, but it has some content on it. But on any of these home pages, what you're able to do is come up and hit this little edit button. Okay, and when you hit the edit button, the system sort of puts the screen in a sort of an editor mode. And if I look down here, oh, I have this little, the system's sort of expecting me to want to add content. So I'll say, yeah, I want to add content. I'll hit the little plus button. And when I do that, what the system is launching is what we call a catalog. It's technically called a widget catalog, but it's our place where we store a whole bunch of pre-built content. And by pre-built content, we mean charts, graphs, business metrics, snapshots of data. And here's how you typically use it, because it's a pretty big library. I'm going to do some searching. So I'm going to search on the term item. We use the term item for an item master, a part master. So I'll search on item, and here's the 4 hits I got. Now, those have various different purposes, etc. But I'll grab this one that says item lookup. Okay, and you can kind of see down there below it says widget added. That just means I've added content to the home page, and I could add more, but you get the point. So I'll close out of this. Now, the system kind of knows, well, that's where I want to put this, but let's say I want to move it back up into sort of the main panel. So what I could do is I could skinny this one down, and there it automatically pulls up. And the user can, let's say I want this one over here. So it's kind of naturally sort of moving things around. At some point, all I'm going to do is hit my save button. Okay, and when I hit the save button, sure, it's going to take a second to sort of reconstitute or sort of fill the data out. But now that I've done that, this view here is completely active. It's completely real time. So our demonstration database has to do with bikes. So if I type in the word bike, I get a hit on all the bikes in my database. Okay, but that's a simple but very representative example of how these home pages work. And I mean, we believe in that case that you probably don't need a technical resource, someone from IT to help with that kind of thing. Because really, we just give them some training on here's how the tool works, and then they're able to sort of build these home pages themselves. And by the way, we won't get into too much technical detail, but again, there's a large catalog of pre-built content, but you also have some ability to add to that pre-built content. Okay, now these are home pages. Now let's get into a tiny bit more detail, and let's look at some detailed screens in our system. So I'm going to come back down to this inventory management home page. Okay, and you're going to see that these are what are called menu links over here, and they're pretty easy to build. If I have time, I'll show you how to add a menu link. But oftentimes with our system, CloudSuite Industrial, you'll see a user can, add a set of menu links, and then it allows for quick and easy access into those more detailed areas of the system. So for example, now I'm gonna open up my item master, or you can call this the part master. And all I do is clicking on this. And although you may not notice this initially, that those links can be very smart. And what I mean by that is when I open up the item master, the user has the ability to say, I want to bring back items or part master records or SKUs that have certain characteristics. I want to look at all parts that are in a particular family code or that I'm the planner for. So they all have the same planner or buyer code. Okay. In my case, I'm bringing all back from parts that have the same family code. And in our system, what you're seeing here, folks, is this is what we call a collection of records, okay? Certainly, I could have brought back one particular item number or part number, or if and by the way, this is the way the entire system behaves. So if as Doug pointed out, if I was bringing up the customer master, I could search for all customers, or I could search for customers in a particular state, or a particular zip code or county, or any combination of those things. But this is, again, what we call a collection of records. And our user base loves this because the collection of records allows the user to sort of work with the data. So for example here, instead of dealing with these 27 records, I could say, well, instead of those 27 records, I want to quickly filter the screen and say, no, I just want to look at purchased records, okay? And then when I hit my little go button up here, you're going to see that I've gone from 27 records down to 21, because now I've sort of I've condensed the data that I'm looking at. Now, remember, this presentation is supposed to be very general in nature, sort of give you an idea of how the system behaves. There's a whole bunch of specific sort of item master data here that I could go into, but it's a lot of that's traditional sort of SKU or item master data that you might think of. Although I think we hold lots of very sort of compelling sort of product data here, but I'm not going to get into those details. We would just give you a sense for how the user interacts with our system. So again, what you've seen here real quickly is how they can quickly bring up a subset of data. Let's change that. Instead of looking at purchased items, I'll go ahead and take a look at manufactured items. And you're going to see as I hit my go button here, that's how quickly the user can sort of change what data they're looking at. Now, as Doug pointed out, all throughout the system, you can do things like this. Look at data in a grid. Okay, so when I do this, I'm looking at it like it's almost like an Excel spreadsheet, okay, or a Google sheet. If you're a Google person, it's almost like looking at a Google sheet. And the system includes built-in tools to allow you to import and export data, much like Doug mentioned, so in and out of the system. Okay, so for example, if I were here in this mode, I could come down and grab an Excel spreadsheet, and this would apply if I was using Google Sheets as well. But I'll grab that. Notice I've got that on my clipboard, and now I can do things like this. Come over and just paste that in. I'm doing, say, I want to do a pasting process, and when I hit the OK button, and I'm doing this kind of quickly, but you can see these are records that I would have been adding from another source, in this case, Microsoft Excel. Now, without getting into too many details, it's noteworthy that this is a really neat capability. It also, as I begin to enter these records, the system does a lot of rule checking, data compliance checking. And you might see over here, it's kind of hard to see, but there's these little blue stars there. That means the system views the data as fully compliant. There's no sort of data holes, okay? So it would, at this point, allow me to sort of finish off the process by hitting my save button. But if, for example, it found some kind of data inaccuracy, those blue stars would be changed to red X's. But that's what we're really getting at here, folks, is this is how sort of easy it is to sort of interact with data from another source, like a spreadsheet. Okay, now, one of the other things we want to mention to you, and I'm going to sort of pause, I'm not going to finish that process, is a couple things. If I'm over here looking at data, another thing that our users like is this idea that I can predefine views of data. So if I set one up here that's called purchased items with zero cost. So when I select that, and there's a real simple way of sort of defining those parameters, but now what I have over here is a series of items that are that match that criteria. So that, again, the user can start working with these. They can send it out to Excel. They can easily email these to their boss, et cetera, or they can, again, just sort of fix the problem. So it's easy to find data in general, and what our users particularly like, it's easy to find non-compliant data, because good ERP systems need compliant data. All right, now the last thing I'll use this screen to talk about is just this. I'm going to come over and find some other data. And remember, we talked about the document management system that exists in our system in CloudSuite Industrial. Here's an example of that. If I hold on a second. If I were to hit this little button over here on the right-hand side, what it does is it reveals a viewer, okay? And that viewer allows me to see, any and all attachments that are associated with this particular item. So there I can kind of see I have a series of attachments, and it's nice because it's readily available. And as I switch to a different record, okay, my attachments would change over there. I don't have any attachments with that particular item. But so it's what we call in context sensitive. But the bigger point here is this is the touch point to our document management system, where it has sort of real legitimate bona fide document tracking and management capabilities, like we talked about, revision tracking, check-in and check-out logic, et cetera. And as I associate records with one ERP record, like the item master, if this item then shows up on a sales order, a purchase order, all of these attachments automatically sort of flow to that area of the system as well. All the way to the point of, for example, if you have an attachment associated with a purchase item and you cut a PO for that, those attachments come with onto the PO, and they can be delivered on an emailed PO as well. So it's sort of very fully deployed, where this document management system sort of works entirely through the ERP system. Okay, very good. Now, let's talk about a little bit more about data reporting. So I'm going to go back to one of my home pages. And there's sort of two reporting styles or reporting capabilities we want to make you fully aware of, or at least we want to whet your appetite with. One is there is a BI, business intelligence tool that is included with CloudSuite Industrial. That's kind of neat and kind of interesting because a lot of ERP systems you're gonna have to sort of buy the BI tool separately. You're gonna have to hope it sort of integrates with the system, et cetera. But with the cloud version of this CloudSuite Industrial, you get a built-in full-purpose BI tool. It's called Burst. And let's take a look at that. I'm back on a home page again. And in this case, I have a Burst dashboard embedded inside of my home page. So again, a dashboard is really just an analytical tool. And I can look at it inside my home page here. Okay, and we'll take a look at this. But if I want to sort of have more real estate to work with this, I'll launch it into a separate browser. Okay, it's just a quick little click of a button there. And what I'm getting is my dashboard into a separate browser. Now, this happens to be, as you can kind of see here, planned sales versus actual sales, so actual to budget kind of thing. And when I look here, I have filtering mechanisms across the top of the form. And then as I move down, I have things like useful KPIs, key performance indicators, charts and graphs, maybe sales by business unit, sales by month and year, okay? Then I have things that it's called a crosstab. I won't go into the details of that, but that's just a neat way of presenting data. As I scroll down on here, I can even get to the point where I see the detailed records that make up what the data that's on the dashboard. And the detailed records can have indicators like if I have a bad margin, I might see a red value. If I have a good margin, I might see a green value. So the point is the system, the dashboard can be very sort of interactive and colorized and allows you to sort of glean useful information sort of just by a quick view, okay? It's also highly interactive. So when I do things like this, let's say this company, I want to drill down on this particular business unit and notice as I do that, the dashboard can be sort of, again, highly interactive. So this particular business unit says, well, here's the only sort of product classifications that work with that. So notice as I did that, all my KPIs were updated, okay? I didn't give you a before picture there, but as I selected this, all my KPIs were updated. And then if I look at my plan amount there of 149, as I select a sub or a product plan, product code, sort of a product family, okay, then all my key performance indicators are further updated, okay? And that goes for all the charts and graphs as well. Now, keep in mind, folks, this is just a sample of what you can do with our BI tool, our Burst Business Intelligence tool. There is some pre-built content, but most of our customers are getting more mileage out of building their own, because essentially what you have the ability to, and we won't go through this in this particular webinar, but all the data that the ERP system holds and maintains is fair game for you to use in building one of these dashboards. And it's not a particularly technical process to build the dashboards. It's very intuitive. One last thing I'll show you here, as you're using a dashboard, okay, notice the data can be sort of presented here, and it can also include hot links to take me into the detailed ERP record. So there, where I've gone from the dashboard, and now I'm into a knee deep in one of the ERP. This is the sales order that was reflected in that dashboard row. Okay, so a lot of really compelling functionality sort of allow you to analyze things, drill around, and drill into relevant data. Okay, so that's what we call the Burst analytical tool. And by the way, notice I have that on this dashboard. If I went back to my inventory homepage, I might have a different dashboard over here. This is sort of an inventory analysis dashboard. There's a lot of compelling functionality there. Let's just spend one more minute on another kind of reporting capability that exists in the system. And this is more for sort of ad hoc, quick and easy data and data retrieval, data mining. as we showed you before, our system allows you to, this is a customer master screen, and our system allows you to do things like say, hey, I want to look, instead of looking at part master information now, I want to say, oh, this is customer master. I want to look at all customers in the state of Ohio. And when I click that button, my records over here are now just customers in the state of Ohio. We kind of showed you that, but what I'm showing you now is that pervades the whole system. Now, if you want to do more advanced sort of ad hoc querying, that's what we're going to show you now. Any screen in our system that holds data, so it could be a customer master, a part master, a vendor master, POs, work orders, general ledger entries, invoices, etc. The whole, pretty much, so the entirety of the system allows you to say, hey, I want to do what I'm going to show you now. I want to take the data that I might see on a screen like this. There's the sort of a grid of that data, okay? And what I want to do is I want to put it in a working area of something we call a data view, okay? So there's a little click of a button up there, and it's taken this data and sort of put it into a grid like I showed you before, but now this particular grid is especially sort of workable. So what I can do at this point is I can start saying things like, all right, you know what? I want to filter some of this data. And maybe the scenario here is my boss calls me and says, I want a listing of all sales that are just domestic, and I want to sort of summarize the year-to-date sales, and I also want this sort of broken by territory. So what I can do is come in here and say, well, my boss said all he wants, or he or she wants, is USA, just domestic sales. So I click this little button and say, really all I'm interested in is USA. I could select others, but look how easy this is. I click that, and now just all USA data. Okay, I come over to here to territory, and for some reason I have some, this is a bad thing, but for some reason I have some territories that are blanks. I don't want those, so I turn those off. Okay, so I might act on that. So the point is, there's lots, and that's just touching the surface, scratching the surface on sort of the way you can sort of select data. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe come in and do a little bit of math. Okay, so this show summaries basically allows me to do math. And really what I'm going to do here is in this sales year to date, that's a call. I'm going to say, I want to do a little bit of math. So I click my little math button, and notice I have some built-in sort of calculations. I'll do a simple sum. But if I went down here to this advanced editor, I could add mathematical calculations, the same that you might do in Excel or even Microsoft Access. All of those kind of calculations are supported, but we'll keep it simple here for now. So I'm doing a little okay, and what you'll see then is now at the bottom, I have a sum. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to break or group this by something. So I'm going to come over and turn on grouping, and I'll group this like my boss asked me to by territory. And here's what you got now, folks, is this data is now broken by territory. So I have Midwest, Northeast, Northwest, Southeast, Southwest, along with their totals. And I can kind of easily either expand or contract the detail. Okay, or I can come up and say, hey, I want to expand all the detail. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that's, you can see that a good regular user of the system is able to do this kind of thing. Okay, and by the way, once the user does this, sure, we can send this out to Excel or to a PDF document, or we can email it, absolutely. But in our case, the user might be able to just sort of work with it right in the ERP system, because A, the data is there, and if they need to drill around, there's right-click options that tell, I won't go into these details, but it allows them to sort of further analyze and drill around the system. So this is a very common capability of our system to sort of do ad hoc sort of data mining, okay? And by the way, if the user finds that this particular view of data is particularly useful, they can come up and save that view. And when they save that view, they can, I didn't do it here, but they can come back and save that and give it a particular name. Here's that, actually the way you do that. You come over and say, save as, and it gives me a chance to put a name in. And the thing I wanted to show you here is they can save that for just themselves, a particular user. They could save it for a group like everyone in in the accounting group or everyone in customer service. Or if I do at the site level, that means I'm saving that and I'm making it available to pretty much so all users. So it's a pretty neat little sort of built-in ad hoc data mining tool. Okay, let's do a couple other miscellaneous things, then we'll maybe finish up the webinar a little bit early. The other thing we want you to be aware of is the system comes with some very nice, what you may think of as business process automation capabilities, what we call workflow tools. Okay, so if maybe I was in the midst of, I added a part master record. So let's do this. Let's say I'm back on our item master screen. And I come over here and I walk through the process of adding a new item record. Okay, I won't go through the mechanics of that, but essentially what you do is there's a new button here that you use to create a new record, and you start filling out all the sort of the necessary fields or properties of an item. When you do that, and this is a small but good representation of what we're talking about, is that the creation of a new item, you have lots of different options here that you might want to avail yourself to. And what I'm getting at is a process flow. In our example here, as soon as I add that item, there is an inbox inside of our system, sort of an ERP centric, inbox. And when I do that, notice the one I'm going to use here is this top one. It says this new item has been set up and now needs purchasing importer approval. So as the recipient, maybe Dave's the purchasing manager, okay? And as he gets this message, he comes over and says, oh, I see I have something to do, and he hits the respond button. And when he hits that, the system, it'll prompt him for some questions. He approves or denies things. And at that point, that particular portion of the process has been satisfied. And then what might happen is, if I wait long enough, I did that wrong. Let me just correct that real fast. Here's what I meant to do. So we're setting up this particular item. So now maybe he comes in and gives a planner code or a buyer code, hits the approve button. Okay, notice that is now satisfied. Now, if I waited 5 or 10 seconds, you'd see that message has now been sort of processed and sent to the next person downstream in the process flow. Okay, again, I think it'll probably rear its head here right now. Notice I have all my messages going to Dave's inbox, okay? But folks, the process flow here now is once purchasing has satisfied their input processes, the next person downstream is receiving this message. And when they hit the respond button, the system is asking for a different set of data to either set up or confirm. So in this case, if you're the quality manager, you might want to indicate whether inspection is required, whether lot tracking is required, yes or no, and then that person can approve or reject. Okay, it's a small example, but it is representative of how you can use our system to automate process flow. So, this was related to the setting up of a new purchased material, but I could have done the same thing for the addition of a new customer, or the changing of a customer's credit limit, or the processing of an engineering change notice, or the approval of a purchase order for some sort of special condition. The reason I mention that is any kind of conditionality can be included in these process flows as well. Okay, I think we'll end on one other quick thing that have you be aware of that sort of we think also helps in sort of the idea of allowing you to collaborate and work effectively with your coworkers. And that is the notion that anywhere in our system, if you're working as with some record in our system, you have the ability to come up and say, I want to do sort of an electronic share, and because I want to share this information with someone. So what I can do is, on any of our screens, you can click this little share button, and what that does is it it makes that whatever's available on that screen makes it shareable. Then you indicate to who you want to share and you hit the share button. Okay, now I already did this, and here's how that share could end up playing out. When a particular user receives a sharing message, they can see it by having this little indicator up here, or they can also orient themselves to sort of just starting their session as opposed to one of our home pages. They can start their sessions in one of our, this is what are called as our feed. Okay, so some of our users actually log onto our system and they start on the feed page, because this is sort of like a I hate to say it, but it's sort of like a Facebook sort of interface where people can kind of easily see things that are sort of being dropped on my over to me as sort of task or request for information. So you can see that I shared with Claire Summers this idea that I want her to review something, and they can, the user, the recipient of this, what's cool about it is they can come over and say, oh, it's related to a particular part number. And when they click this button, the user is then automatically taken over to the screen where me, as the original the person who originally shared the information, this is the record that I wanted them to look at. So my coworker calls this almost like an electronic sticky note. And it's a small, but like I say, representative example of how you can sort of collaborate with your fellow employees, your teammates. Okay. All right. Now I did that kind of in a quick way there in the last few minutes, but that's those last couple things we showed you there, the internal inbox and the ability to collaborate and share. Those are all tools that we think help you to sort of enable and automate and accelerate business processes. Okay, hit you with a lot in a short amount of time. I talk fast. I hope that's okay. But Emily, I think we'll call it an end at this point.
All right. So that brings us to the end of this session. Thank you so much, Mike. Like you said, we only had 30 minutes to cover this powerful tool, and you did a really great job. So I really appreciate you squeezing that all into a short period of time. For our audience, like I said, there is so much more to see. I encourage you to reach out to us at decision.com or via email at info@decision.com if you have any questions or would like more information about this product. As promised, all of our registrants will be sent a follow-up email tomorrow. That includes a link to watch the recording if you'd like to share it with your coworkers or just watch it one more time. You can also respond to those emails directly if you have any questions. With that, I want to give a quick thank you to Doug from Ellwood Group, again to Mike from DRI for sharing your time with our audience today. It was a great session. We look forward to having you again. Thank you to all of our audience attendees as well. We hope you all have a happy and healthy holiday season, and we'll catch you at the next session.